Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I know, it's been a while, but I'm here, I'm back, and today's video is going to be a simple get ready with me, along with a bit of a story time on how I went to the Philippines back in February of 2020 to go see some of my family that I haven't seen in almost 20 years. My experience being there, how I felt, what I did, and my terrible experience getting back home just before the first lockdown of March 2020. Now, without any further ado, let's get started. Hey guys, so in the video at some point I say December when I really meant March. So keep that in mind when you watch it, and when you hear me say December, it's March. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, so the day of my flight to leave the country was the 9th of February, and I was scheduled to stay in the Philippines for 5 weeks, and then I was scheduled to come home on the 18th of March. And my flight was from Stansted to Qatar, and then Qatar to Manila, and me and my boyfriend decided to stay in a hotel very close to Stansted the day before, as that cuts out travelling on the day, which takes about 3 hours, and I didn't want to think about travelling there on the day just in case there was traffic or I didn't get up on time or whatever. So we thought that the best thing to do would be to stay in a hotel close to the airport to make it easier. And that way we got a little bit of alone time together before I left as well, which was nice. So I get up at maybe 4, and then we get to the airport for like 5 o'clock. I check my bag in, I get the tickets, and then spent a bit of time with him, said our goodbyes, which was quite sad because we had been together for almost 5 years at that point, and I'd never ever spent more than a week away from him. So 5 weeks was going to be tough. I was travelling by myself, which was scary because I suffer from anxiety, and it was also the first time I was ever travelling on my own, and it was nerve-wracking, it really was. Anyway, so we said our goodbyes, which was quite difficult, and I went through customs, that was all good, that was fine. Went to the lounge, everything was fine, had my ticket, had my bags, and all I needed to do was just wait for my flight. So I went to the lounge. I was flying business this time, so I was lucky enough to have that extra bit of comfort flying business, as it was the first time, and I'd never flown business before. It was always economy, so it was a really nice experience getting to see what that was like and how much more comfort you get for the amount you pay. Anyway, so I'm sitting in the lounge waiting for my flight to be ready to hop on. I see it on the screen that the flight is wanting us to go to the gate, so I get my bag, I go to the gate, excuse me, and the gate doesn't seem to be open yet. So me and the rest of the passengers are standing at the doors waiting for them to be opened, and we're waiting there for maybe, I don't know, maybe half an hour, and then you just hear on the intercom the flight number, and then how they were having some issues with the plane, and we were told to go back to our lounges, go back to what we were doing before coming to the gate, and then when the plane is ready, that they'll put it on the screen or they'll call out the name again and then we can board the plane. But for now, we couldn't. So I go back into the lounge and I thought to myself, okay, well, I haven't had any breakfast yet, so I'll have some breakfast. I ate some food that was available in the lounge. I chilled out, listened to music, maybe watched a couple of shows on my iPad, went on my laptop, and then I think I was waiting for a while, like an hour or two, and then it said that the plane that I was going to go on was cancelled. So I was like, oh, what do I do? I never experienced a flight being cancelled before, so at that time my dad was awake, so I called him and I was like, Dad, this is the situation, what do I do? And he's like, don't worry about it, they'll probably reschedule another flight, so just bear with, stay there and then see what they say. So we had some representatives come in and explain to those who were in the lounge on that flight to stay put, and another flight was going to be placed for us to go on. So I was like, oh good, because at that time I'd never experienced, you know, a flight being cancelled before, so I was quite panicky about it. But they said, you know, don't worry about it, we're going to have another flight for you guys on so and so number and it will be ready, you just have to look at the screen. And sure enough, there it was on the screen and it was sorted. So I thought, okay, they're not wanting us to go to the gate yet, I'll just continue to sit in the lounge and chillax. And then it gets cancelled. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why is it getting cancelled? And then I realised that the problem was probably due to the weather. Now, if you remember, back in February of 2020, the UK and a few other places were suffering from really, really bad storms and really strong winds. So the problem that airports were having was that planes could not land or take off because the wind was so strong. Yeah, so eventually my flights got cancelled at Stansted 3 or 4 times, and then eventually Qatar, who I was flying with, their representatives came back and said, we're not going to issue another flight for you guys. What's going to happen is we are going to provide you with a free taxi to go to Heathrow and you can go catch a flight there. They know about it, we've talked to them about the whole situation. We're going to provide you with a taxi, all you need to do is just hop on it, go to Heathrow, tell them which flight you were on, who you are, and they'll sort it out from there. And in the midst of the planes, my flights getting cancelled, there was a woman who was supposed to be on the same flight as me, and I befriended her. And her name's Fiona, she's a lovely woman. And ever since then, we kept in contact. So we decided, hey, since we're on the same flight, how about we jump in a taxi together and share one? So that's what we did. We jumped in a taxi that was provided by Qatar, and we went to Heathrow Airport in a taxi. Took us about an hour to get there, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but I seem to remember it was like an hour. And at this point, me and Fiona and the rest of the passengers in the business lounge we had been there for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 hours before being taken to Heathrow Airport. So imagine 9, 10, so I'd been there since 5 o'clock in the morning. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think it may have been maybe like 12 or even 1 o'clock before we were taken to Heathrow Airport. So we got to Heathrow and me and Fiona got out of our taxi and we went to the Qatar business desk and we went, "Hi, so this is the situation. We've been told this, that and the other. We're from Stansted Airport. They told us to come here, blah, blah, blah." And we just explained what the representatives at Stansted told us. And they looked at me and Fiona and the rest of the passengers that were following on behind us with the same story like, "What are you talking about?" They had no idea what we were talking about. So me and Fiona looked at each other and we were like, what are we gonna do? So they kind of looked at us all confused, and this is when I started to panic a little bit because I was like, well, if you don't know what's gonna happen. Anyway, they told us to bear with and they'll come back and they need to speak to somebody on the phone or something. So we were like, okay. They came back like 15 minutes later saying, "Okay, we know the situation, we've just been briefed on it, everything's okay, we're going to sort you out some flights, no problem." So we're standing at the desk and they're taking a look at their screen to see which planes from Qatar or are flying Qatar Airways are available to take us from Heathrow to Qatar. And the representative said, "I'm sorry, we don't have any flights on at the moment that we can book you on, but if you come back in an hour or two, then we should have some flights available to book you on." So me and Fiona looked at each other and we were like, "Oh, okay, let's go get some lunch," because it was like maybe 2 or 3 p.m. by that point. So we were like, okay, let's go get some lunch. So we went to the nearest restaurant, brasserie, that was closest to the desk and sat down for a meal because we hadn't had anything since breakfast in the lounge, and that was like hours ago. So I had something like, I think I had like salmon, which was really nice, and Fiona had something, I don't remember what she had, but we just sat down, had a glass of wine and just tried to relax a little bit, but by that time I was already quite tired because it was getting on. And sorry, I can't concentrate. And so a couple of hours goes by, went to the restaurant, we sat down for a little bit, a couple of hours goes by, so we go back to the desk and we go back to the desk. They tell us that there's a couple of flights available, so they book us on it and everything seemed to be good. They told us that we shouldn't check our bags in yet, which I was a little bit confused about, but I was like, okay. But they booked us tickets and they told us to wait a little bit longer before going through customs and stuff, and we were like, okay, that's fine. So they booked us our tickets. We had to wait another maybe like half an hour and then they could take our suitcases, and that's what we did. We got our tickets, we waited about half an hour, checked our bags in, and then we went through customs. Everything seemed okay, seemed to be running smoothly up until up to that point. There were some issues, but then it started to get back on track again. And so we were like, okay, good. We've got through customs. We're back in another lounge in a different airport. Things seem to be okay. So me and Fiona went together. We went to the lounge together and we're like, okay, we'll be able to talk to each other on the plane. We're buddies now. We're bonded through this experience. Let's go to the lounge and relax before our flight. And what happens? Like half an hour goes by and we look on the screen to see the status of our flight. Cancelled. Cancelled. So we, for God's sake, poor Fiona, whilst I was looking at the screen to say that it had been cancelled, she was in the shower refreshing up in the because in the business lounge in Heathrow, they have showers so you can freshen up and stuff, and she was in the shower at the time. So whilst all the other people were leaving, I was waiting for Fiona, and I went into the bathroom and I went, Fiona, oh my God, our flight's been cancelled. And she said to me, what? Are you kidding me? And I went, nope, come on, let's go. So she got her clothes on, and then we went back. And by this point, the representatives for Qatar Airways at the desk were getting a little bit stressed, you could tell. And then also at the same time, you saw in the time that me and Fiona and all the other business passengers had been at Heathrow getting this sorted and then having our flight cancelled, all those flying, premium economy were all at Stansted for all that time. And as we went back to the desk, you just see all of the people flying economy on our flight come in. I can't imagine the experience that they've had. Anyway, so we go back to the desks and we say to them, okay, what the hell is going on? What do we do? And they go, we're really terribly sorry for the inconvenience, but our flights just cannot land. We're having some really big difficulties. All of our flights have been backed up throughout the whole airport. Same goes for Stansted. We've just had a really big backlog of flights either not being able to take off or land. So right now, we don't know what the situation is, and you please have to bear with us. But for those who have already checked their bags in for this flight, a representative will take you to go fetch them. And that took like over an hour. So we had to go through the airport to go try and find our suitcases that we'd already checked in for this flight. And we'd done that at Stansted as well. Oh God. Anyway, so the representative took us to go find our suitcases for us to pick up and then check in on another flight later on. We got our bags. We went back to the airport, back to the front desk, and they just said to us, look, it's a waiting game now. We haven't got any flights available for the next few hours. You're just gonna have to wait. So everybody in business, everybody in economy, they were all just sitting ducks. And you can imagine that's probably what a lot of other passengers were experiencing on all different kinds of flights across all airports. Like, it was just one big cluster mess. It was maddening, honestly. So me and Fiona, we decided to just get a seat in the airport because we weren't allowed to go back to the lounge. So we just found like a bench in the airport like everybody else did and just wait. come back in an hour, see what the status is, come back in an hour, see what the status is. And every hour we kept going back and other passengers kept going back. It was the same story. And it started to get dark and people started to get really angry and really pissed off. And patience was wearing very thin amongst a lot of people. And if this is the experience that I was having in business, can you imagine what people in economy were experiencing? How long they were waiting in Stansted. Oh God, it must have been crazy. Anyway, so it gets dark, people are getting tired, and at this point, Qatar doesn't have any flights. They're literally cancelling flights left, right and centre. They don't have any other flights for people to get on. And Fiona, her flight was to go to Qatar, so then she could jump on another flight to Australia, because her daughter was giving birth to her first baby in Australia and she wanted to be there for the birth. She didn't want to miss it. And so when the representatives were telling her, we can get you a flight to Australia, but it's not until like another 2 days time, another day's time or whatever, and they were offering to book her a hotel in Qatar during that time so she can rest before her flight, and she just kept saying no, I'm not having it, because she really did not want to miss the birth of her grandson. And so it's like, I can't even remember what time in the evening. I think it's like 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, 10 o'clock in the evening. And we had been there for hours. It was like 5 or 6 hours of just constantly waiting, constantly checking up to see if there were any flights available. And it was just manic, honestly. And then Fiona and a lot of other passengers were complaining, and they managed to get flights on other airways. And because it had been my first time flying by myself and I wasn't one to complain or kick up a fuss because I didn't know anything about that, I was just standing there like, what do I do? But Fiona, she knew what she was doing. She had so much experience flying all over the world, and she knew what to do in order to be heard, to be seen, and to have her demands met. And she was so nice to me, and nice enough to help me get a flight to the Philippines. She managed to get herself a direct flight from Heathrow all the way to Melbourne. And then she spoke to the same manager who sorted her flight out to sort me one out, and luckily I got a direct flight from Heathrow to Manila. No more Qatar, nothing like that. I had a direct flight. But here's the catch. It was a last minute flight. I was at the wrong terminal and I had barely enough time to get to it. And he looked at me as he gave me the ticket and he said, you need to get there now. And I was like, can you imagine? My anxiety. I was up. Oh my God, honestly, you have no idea. Let me go find my lashes. So there I was, panicking, out of my mind, thinking to myself, oh my God, how am I gonna get there? I was looking at the time on the ticket and I was like, oh my God, I still need to check my bag and I still need to go through customs. I still need to do all of this. Oh God. So I ran to the taxi rank outside of the airport. I waved down the first taxi driver I could see and I shouted, I was like, you need to get me to airport terminal. Okay, so I just looked on the internet and I was in terminal 3 and I needed to get to terminal 4. Blah, 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 blah. I can't even remember. It was just such a haze, and all I remember is just being worried out of my mind that I was going to miss this freaking flight. And he said to me, don't you worry, I'm going to get you there on time. You're going to have enough time to get there, get your bags checked in, don't you worry. And I was just so thankful that somebody like that was just so nice to me. I really needed the reassurance. Anyway, so the taxi driver got me to terminal whatever, I can't even remember now. And checked my bags in, went through customs, and the rules were different. So all of this stuff that I had packed in small bottles and bags that were okay for Qatar, it wasn't the same for Philippine Airlines. And I was just getting really upset that a lot of this stuff that I'd packed in my bag I had to chuck, because I'd spent money on it in the other airport. Oh, and I was just so upset about it. And because it was taking a lot of time, I was just thinking to myself, oh God, this is the last thing that I need. But the women reassured me. They said, look, you can't do anything about it now. Don't worry about it. Just get on your flight. That's the only thing you need to worry about for now. Just, these are the rules. And I was like, okay. I was already stressed and tired out of my mind. So I just thought to myself, okay, let's just leave it. Let me get through customs, buy it on the other side, get to my flight. That's it. So I just rebought those items on the other side after customs in duty free or whatever. It was like deodorant and some wet wipes and stuff. They made me chuck it in the bin. Oh God. Anyway, so I made it through the skin of my teeth. I had maybe 5 minutes spare before they were letting people on the plane, because I don't like to get there when they're already boarding people on the plane, because there are certain people that they let on the plane depending on what your position is on the plane. They let certain people go first depending on where your seats are. And I'd made it. I had a few minutes spare and it was okay, and thank goodness. And I just remember sitting down in my seat on the plane and taking a really big deep breath and going, oh my God, finally. It was a freaking nightmare. Like, first time I ever fly out anywhere by myself and I experience all of that crap. I cannot imagine what people experienced when they were in economy. Can you imagine those people? They wouldn't have been able to get on a new flight. I'd been awake for 20 hours. Like, that's crazy. I was up since like 3:50, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I got on that plane and I was sitting in that seat at like midnight. Like, I'd been awake for so long. And I was just glad to be getting there. I was lucky. And I can't thank my friend Fiona enough for what she did for me. I really can't. And I really, really appreciate her. And we're friends on Facebook now. And we keep in touch. And it's nice. It really is. It's nice how things like that bring people together. And I was lucky enough to have somebody on my side that day. So, anyway, I need to find my lash glue, so bear with. So, I slept on that flight. I had the best sleep of my life, I swear to God, because I was flying business and my seat could recline all the way down like a bed. And I really, really was glad that I was flying business. You have no idea. And I'm very thankful that I got the chance to fly business. I had some food, watched some TV, and it was just really nice. And I remember getting to Manila and thinking, wow, this is the first time I've been out of the country and I am thousands of miles away from home and I'm on my own. Not for very long though, because my Lola was gonna meet up with me at the airport, but during that time that I was by myself on the plane, I was like, damn, I'm a grown up. I'm an adult. I had some really nice PJs. I put them on, and I had some skincare, lip balm. I had a rollerball of like lavender oil to help me sleep. It was just, I was prepared, and it was really nice to just sit on the plane, sleep on the plane, and relax. And when my grandma picked me up, I think it was evening. Yeah, it was like late afternoon, evening. And so I obviously didn't sleep well that night, because but yeah, when I saw her at the airport as I came out, I cried. I really did, because I hadn't seen my grandma since I was like 12. It had been a good 12, 22, yeah, it'd been 11 years since I saw her, because the last time I saw her was when she was in the UK for 6 months to see us, and that was the last time I saw her. So yeah, that was something. A load of emotions, and I just cried in her arms in public. I had to let it out, and I think a lot of it was to do with like what I'd experienced in the airport as well. I was just so stressed, like you can't even imagine. But I was there finally, and she gave me the big hug, and that was also the first time I ever met my lolo. They took me to the car, and we proceeded to drive to Tagaytay, which was further south. And we were on the way there, singing, having a good old time, and I took everyone out to Jollibee on the way back to Tagaytay, which was nice. And then I got back, had a sleep. Didn't sleep very well because of the mosquitoes, but I was just glad to be there. And I spent 5 weeks there, and I saw, in the time that I was there, I saw my cousins, my titas, I didn't get to see my uncle, my tito, because he was away in a different country working abroad. And funny enough, he came back to the Philippines just as I left to go back to London, go back home. So I never really got to see him, which was sad, but I hope I get to see him, you know, at some point. But yeah, I got to see all of my cousins that I hadn't seen since I was like 3-4 years old. Got to see my aunties. I got to see my grandma, and it was just so nice, you know. And I loved the heat. I loved being back home. And even though I left them when I was like 3 or 4 years old, it felt like home. It really did. It felt like I was getting back to my roots, to a part of me that I hadn't explored too much until then. I mean, I'd always known about my Filipino background, and I'd been to very many Filipino parties, and I love Filipino food, but to really experience the Philippines again as an adult and to really take in everything, it was lovely. And during my time there, I went back to where I was born in Angeles City. I went back to where my old house was as a kid. I went out drinking. It was just really nice. And I also went to Boracay while I was there. And oh my god. I went there with my cousin, and it was amazing. I got sunburn on like the second day, and I'd never been sunburned in my life. The only place I'd ever been sunburned in my life was like my shoulders, and that was when I went to America and I was wearing barely any sun protection. Yeah. Anyway, so I was wearing sun protection, really good sun protection in the Philippines, and I still got sunburn. It was just so hot. Anyway, so we went to Boracay. I went with my cousin Paolo, and the island was beautiful, so beautiful, and we were scheduled to stay there for 6 days, and we were staying in this really beautiful boutique hotel, nothing fancy, because I wanted to spend most of my money on the excursions and going out and experiencing the island, doing things like snorkeling, diving, all that jazz. So it was a really nice room for the price though. Oh my god. But we were there for 6 days. I went there I think on March 10th, March 11th, or maybe even March 9. I can't remember now. But all I remember is that after my time there, I had a few days before I needed to go back. I think I had like 6 days before I needed to leave to go back home to the UK, to England. And on the 4th day, we'd been to different islands. We went snorkeling. I got some really nice videos of the fish. And on the last 2 days, we were supposed to do some diving and a couple of other excursions. But on the 4th night we were there, we were sitting in a restaurant, ordering some drinks and food, and my cousin, excuse me, overheard a couple talking about the president shutting down and stopping all domestic flights to and from the mainland. And I was like, what? So he had this conversation with the couple, and basically the president was catching on about this virus, and he was going to stop all domestic flights going from little islands to the mainland within like a day, within like 24 hours, or in like 1 or 2 days. And I was like, oh my god, what do we do? And my cousin was like, I don't know, what do you want to do? So we had our dinner, went back to the hotel room, and we were thinking about rebooking flights to go back to Manila ASAP. So there we are in the hotel room trying to rebook flights, and it just wasn't working. We couldn't get a hold of anyone, we couldn't book anything. It was a really tiny like plane, tiny commercial plane that was taking us from Manila to Boracay Island. It was tiny, so there was no booking system, there was nothing. So the next morning early, we went to the booking office right next to the airport, and I had to pay, I don't know, like 4,000 or 5,000 pesos at the time. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a bit less, I can't remember, but all I remember is that it was a lot of money for 2 flights to get back to the mainland that day. I didn't want to chance it, because what happens if I waited another day and then he cancelled all domestic flights? I would have been stuck. So I paid the amount, we waited for the flight, got back to the mainland, and I went back to Tagaytay. We rented a car and we went back to Tagaytay, and I had a few days with my cousins before I had to go back home. And at that time, the pandemic, the virus, was really starting to take effect in the Philippines, you know. places were being shut. My Lola was getting worried, and she said I wasn't allowed to take my little cousin Zoe to the beach. And so I spent my last few days in the Philippines like worrying about my journey back home and whether it was going to be okay. Establishments weren't open. Like, it was really weird to experience all that. So I did the same thing that I did in London, getting on my flight in the Philippines. So the day before my flight, I decided to book an Airbnb in Manila, right next to the airport, so I didn't have to worry about traveling on the day, because the traffic getting from Tagaytay to Manila, forget it, honey. So I got there the day before, put my bags in the Airbnb, and then I decided to explore where I was, because my Airbnb was in a kind of like an apartment in a hotel. It was really weird. I'd never experienced that before, but it was a really nice room. I had a mini kitchen, a bed, a table, and that was it. And so I went outside to go try and find some food, and I found this really cute Korean store that was selling things like instant noodles and Korean style bread, but it just looked derelict. The whole place in Manila looked shut down, derelict. Everything was closing, and it was just maddening. Everybody was wearing masks already. It was just so strange. You know, people were really worried about it already. Anyway, so that was the 17th, and oh God, I remember getting back, heating my noodles up, sitting in the hotel room ready to go to bed. I was just calling like my dad up and my boyfriend up to tell them that I was ready to go back home. Oh my God, honestly. Here we go. So there I was, sitting in bed, you know, realizing that I'm going back home tomorrow, and my flights for the 18th were Manila to Qatar via Qatar Airways, and then Qatar to London via British Airways. Now, whilst I was sitting there, I got an email from British Airways telling me that my flight from Qatar to London was cancelled. You can't make this up. So I call my dad up again, and I say to him, Dad, you are not going to believe this. My flight back home from Qatar to London has been cancelled. And there I am, panicking, worrying, like, Dad, what am I going to do? And he's trying to calm me down. And he goes, Kelly, just rebook another flight. And I'm going, but that's going to be so expensive. Don't worry about it. Just get your ass home. Most important thing. Don't worry about the money. Just get your ass home. So I went on the British Airways website. They were freaking bankrupt. That their website was not working. There wasn't any available British Airways flights. So I had to rebook a flight with Qatar. And so I rebooked a flight with Qatar, economy flight, £1,700. Are you freaking kidding me? That almost cost as much as my freaking business flight there and back. Like, it cost 1,900 and something for the Philippines flight there and back that I paid for business. And it was £1,700 for a flight back home from Qatar to London. That was crazy. Anyway, I couldn't think about that. My dad said I just needed to get my ass home. So I booked the flight. I was ready to go. I went to the airport in the morning. And luckily, my flight from Manila to Qatar was not cancelled. It was going ahead. I had no problems there, aside from the fact that it was just so stressful. I got to the airport an hour earlier than I usually do, so I had like over 3 hours of making sure that I check in, I get everything done. I don't have anything prop up while I'm there. And I speak to the woman at the desk and I tell her that my flight from Qatar to London was cancelled and to see if they could do anything about it. And they tried to call British Airways for me. They tried to get in contact with them and they just couldn't get hold of them. They were freaking bankrupt. It was horrible. So they couldn't do anything on their end, so I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and sort it out once I get into Qatar. So I went on my flight, easy breezy, smooth sailing. I get to Qatar and I explained to them the situation, how I booked a flight and it was cancelled, and now I'm flying via Qatar Airways and I'm hoping that they can upgrade my seat to business. And I know that they could, and I know it wasn't impossible task for them, because my ordeal, what happened to me, I felt that I deserved to have my seat upgraded. I'd paid for one, and even though it was not their business, I felt like they could have helped me, and they did, but not without me making a fuss. And I remember what my friend Fiona said to me, right? She said to me, if you do not make yourself seen, heard or known, if they do not remember you, they will not do anything for you. So what I did is I just explained to them how upset I was, my experience, what I went through, and I wouldn't take no for an answer. I wasn't rude because I understood that their situation was stressful, but I just wouldn't take no for an answer. And that's what I did. I stood there and I said, I know you can do something for me. Please just help me out here. I paid £1,700 for an economy flight. I know you can upgrade my seat to a business. And after a little bit of time, they did. And they were nice enough to do that for me. And I was so thankful and I was so happy. And finally, I was going to go home comfortable enough given the circumstances, but I was just so glad that I could get back home. Oh my god, the business lounge in Qatar, absolutely amazing. It's like a completely different world. The business lounge in Stansted, god awful. It really is nothing compared to Qatar. The business lounge in Heathrow, quite nice, nothing to complain about. And the business lounge in the Manila airport was quite good as well. It's just the Stansted one was really awful. But yeah, I remember getting on that flight from Qatar back to London, and I was thinking to myself, oh thank god I get to go home, because the worst thing would have been getting stranded in a foreign country that I didn't even speak the language. I would have freaked the hell out. So I'm just glad that I'm back home and I get to see my family again, my dad, my dog, my boyfriend, my brothers. So it was nice to just finally be back home. But the experience I had getting there and getting back, it was just crazy. I could not believe that I had experienced that the very first time traveling by myself and going to a different country. You can't make this up. You just can't. And for a while, I know because the pandemic hit and stuff, I couldn't go anywhere, but even if I could, I wouldn't have. Not by myself, at least. It gave me freaking PTSD for a while. It really did. Because oh my God. And I don't know, once I go back on a plane and I go somewhere else one day, and I haven't since I came back from the Philippines, I don't know how I'm going to react. I really don't. And I just hope that I've kind of gotten over most of it. But I got back home on the 19th, yeah, the 19th of March. I don't know why, but I keep thinking December. It's because I'm recording this in December, but I came back on the 19th of March, and then literally within a few days, 19, 20, like 4, 5, 6 days, lockdown, literally. So that was nuts, really, really nuts. And I'm just glad I got home before traveling restrictions and stuff. I was just glad to be back home, because it could have been a lot worse. I could have been either stranded on the island, I could have been stranded in Manila, I could have been stranded in freaking Qatar. Oh no, honey. No. I'm just going to finish the rest of my makeup and then I will be back with the finished result. Hey everybody, so this is the finished look. I just added some mascara to my bottom lashes. Then I added some contour, blush, highlighter, lip liner and lipstick. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe to my channel if you want to watch more of my videos. I hope you enjoyed my story about my trip. If you do have any questions about it, make sure to leave it down in the comments section. If you want to know what products I used, I will leave it down in the description box. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.